Putin's fantastic failures, Ukraine and Russia war update. This is what we'll talk about today. I will talk about several things happened during the war in Ukraine, and about Russian losses, which is now over 1 million people, about attacks on Ukraine and Ukrainian civilians, and what is happening on the fronts, and how is Russian army handling the war, which is supposed to be lasting 3 days before Russia will capture Kiev. Turned out to be this didn't happen. So lots of other information from mostly last few days in June, from like 26 to 28, but about certain things I'll talk about. It happened a little bit earlier, but it's relevant and important about the war in Ukraine, like what is NATO and G7 meetings were about, and so on. How is European Union and the United States are handling the situation and the war in Ukraine, what's changed and how it will affect Ukraine. Hello there, I am Elina, welcome back to my channel, Enough of Propaganda. Please like, subscribe, share my videos, let's make truth available for everyone. For those who knows me, you well aware that I'm originally from Russia, but I live in Canada for many years now, and I stand with Ukraine. Not just because I have some Ukrainian blood, has nothing to do with it whatsoever. It's because I have been researching this war since the very beginning in 2014, when Russia unprovokedly attacked Ukraine. And exactly the same thing they did in 2022, only Russia this time did full-scale invasion. And if you've been on my channel, you have been on playlists War in Ukraine 2014, and important to know about war in Ukraine, so you know that Putin lies all the time. I proved with Putin's his own words, include Girkin Strelkov own words, and the facts and the video proofs, almost practically everything I say. On top of that, I was born and have lived in USSR, and I firsthand experienced what it is like to live in two dictatorships, in the USSR and in Russia. And now for over 20 years, I live in democratic and free country of Canada and travel the world. I have traveled through 42 states at least of the United States, several times through many of them, and I know what's the difference between democracy and the dictatorship. This is why, in my opinion and in opinion of people who watch my channel, my information is deeper than some channels on this topic, and it helps them to understand more in depth what is happening, because this war is going on for over 11 years. It didn't start in 2022. And this is why I am thinking that my information could be useful for you. Welcome to the channel. Before we will start talking about what is happening right today, I want to little bit return back in the past and talk about this article of Deutsche Welle. General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Russia's losses in the war exceeded 1 million people. So Putin he was never legally elected, so he can't be a president of Russian Federation, as many refer to him. The usurper on the Russian throne basically managed to kill, wound, and lost over 1 million Russians alone since February 24, 2022. The Ukrainian General Staff reported on it on June 12th, which was Russian Day of Russia, basically. Soon we will have Canada Day on July 1st in Canada, and I can't compare those two holidays. But this is the topic for another video, perhaps. Let's talk about Russian losses. They're horrendous. They're so big that they already exceeded 1 million people. And I want to put a little bit of attention to this so we will be on the same page, so we know what are we talking about exactly. At the time, on June 12th, it was 1,340,000 military personnel. For the fourth year in a row, Ukraine's General Staff has been publishing daily reports how many tanks, drones and troops the enemy lost in the past 24 hours. And many of YouTube bloggers, and me included, often show you this information, and I will show you today what is happening today. And what do these losses mean? I would like we will be on the same page on that. A representative of the Ukrainian General Staff, Andrei Kovalyov, explained. And, for example, current time news, which I will show you today, also reported on that the overall losses of the Russian occupiers, as published by the General Staff, consists of two main categories that the enemy incurs during the combat operations: irrecoverable and combat sanitary losses. In military science, irrecoverable losses include killed in action, missing in action, captured, died from wounds, discharged due to disability. Sanitary losses are those of wounded or sick. The exact number of Russian soldiers killed varies. Some sources suggest around 250,000. For example, TSIC believes that this is the number. The outlet Mediazona and the BBC, along with the team of volunteers, maintain a named list of dead Russian soldiers using open sources like social media, obituaries, funeral photos, and so on. These are completely confirmed, with the names, the rank, the place of burial, sometimes pictures of the grave, and so on. As of now, mid-June, that list included 111,387 individuals. It is obviously not complete, especially as Russia has started prosecuting people for publishing casualty data, even if it is about their own relatives. It is easy to translate these articles from Russian, and that's what I did. This is about journalists have identified the names of more than 115,000 Russian military personnel who died in Ukraine. At least 240 of them signed contracts and died at the age of 18. And this is Russia, who's trying to blame Ukraine. Oh, you cannon fodder, you're using Ukrainians. Ukrainians are defending their home. Russians are fighting aggressive war in foreign country, which did not attack Russia. And this is one of the stories. 18-year-old contract soldier Vitaly Ivanov from the Irkutsk region, where I actually lived. His mother Anna said that during 2 weeks of training, her son received specialty of military intelligence officer in 2 weeks. And on February 5th, 2025, he was sent on combat mission. It was his first and last combat mission. So he get killed within about a week on the front. What is also important that in 2023 the Russian Federation adopted a law that allowed adult school graduates to sign a contractual agreement for military service. Before this law came into force, one of the requirements for entering military service under a contract was having a higher or secondary vocational education. For comparison, during the entire Soviet-Afghan war, the USSR lost somewhere about 15,000 soldiers, almost 10 times less than confirmed names of Russian soldiers killed in Ukraine. And it could vary from just death from 14,400 up to 26,000, but roughly 15,000. As of June 28th, it's already, since June 12th, remember, 1,017,720 people, 1,000 a day, just in a 1 day. And those the tanks, artillery, planes, and so on. So bravo Putin. In such a short time, in 3 years of full-scale invasion, little bit like over 3 years, he managed to destroy and kill over 1,017,000 of my compatriots Russians alone, and about who knows how many Ukrainians. There are different numbers. Last night, as well as every night, Russia keep attacking Ukraine. It keep attacking Ukrainian civilians. This is metro in Kiev. And according to Anton Gerashchenko's post, Ukraine is under yet another massive Russian missile and drone attack tonight. In Kiev, many people sleep in the subway during attacks because it doubles as a shelter. As a person who has lots of friends in Ukraine, I know what is happening. Not everyone, like in Kiev, they have a shelter, which they can use metro as a shelter, for example. My friends, since the first day of the full-scale invasion, February 24th, 2022, many of them, they don't have this kind of opportunity. Many of them just have to sit down in the corridor, hugging their children, hugging their family members, hugging their animals, because if you stay in the living room, for example, during the attack, If the windows will break, you will be hurt by the glass. If you are sitting in a bathtub, let's say in a bathroom, tiles might be broken and you will be hurt. But the safe place for many people is just their basement, if they have a private house, or many people live in apartments, so they just have to sit in the corridor of their apartment when Russia strike Ukraine, civilians of Ukraine. While Russia can't achieve victory on the battlefield, they continues to bomb civilians in Ukraine. This is from June 22nd, and this is Ukraine. This is a post from President of Ukraine Zelensky, and Russia continue bombing Kiev and regions, territories near Kiev, like Белая Церковь or Белая Церква, and so on, where Shahid struck a hospital. So Russia continue whacking civilians, continue whacking hospitals, continue whacking churches, and continue killing Ukrainians. According to Ukrainian armed forces, last night Russia launched 363 drones and 8 missiles in Ukraine. Most were shot down. But explosions reported in Poltava, Zaporizhzhia, Kremenchuk, Mykolaiv, Lviv. The largest drone attack on the west of Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. This is in the middle of the night in Ukraine. But Russia is doing everything to keep us from sleeping. That's what writing Katerina Kharbunova from Odessa. Odessa in particular isn't sleeping, especially 21-story residential building. And search and rescue operations are ongoing. Russia even famous that they sometimes do double tap strike. As soon as the search and rescue showed up and police and ambulance and firefighters, they keep whacking them again. I'm not sure this will be the case, I hope not. But while the United States and European Union keep talking pointlessly, Putin fails to achieve victory on the battlefield, yet keeps talking about peace negotiations, even as he continues to strike Ukrainian cities. I was very outraged to hear when Putin was saying, oh, about Iran, oh, how dare you to attack and this and that, while doing exactly the same thing in Ukraine for over 11 years, and especially in the last over 3 years of full-scale invasion. And the nerve to accuse other countries of what he's doing himself. This is the current time. Today, Russian army attacked Ukraine Dnipropetrovsk region. According to Sergei Lysak, head of the regional military administration, the city of Samar was hit. 5 civilians were killed, 23 was wounded, and this is the second large-scale missile strike on Dnipropetrovsk in 3 days. On Tuesday, a massive Russian attack killed 23 people, 2 in Samar and 21 in regional capital city Dnipro. According to Mayor Boris Filatov, over 300 people were wounded. The attack damaged about 50 residential buildings, 40 medical institutions, industrial sites, a church, and a bread factory. Filatov called this worst destruction in the city since the war began. In Khmelnytsky Oblast region, Russia launched a massive attack on Starokonstantinov city, using over 20 drones, Kinzhal air ballistic missiles, and Kalibr cruise missiles. Starokonstantinov, this is where it is. In this video showing how Russia Iskander ballistic missile striking a school building in Odessa region just days ago, murdering 3 people. And also injured over a dozen people, including teenagers. For you to know, everybody who are watching my channel long enough and who has military experiences, many of my subscribers, they are very intelligent people, they know that missiles are programmed on the ground. It was sent deliberately. When it strikes school, it strikes hospital. It was deliberate. It's not the pieces falling down or some drone flew for some reason nowhere. These were programmed on purpose. I would like to present you some important channels on YouTube and on Twitter, for example, like Anna from Ukraine. This is what is happening recently. Another deadly week or deadly months for Russian aviation. In just 2 days, Ukraine's long-range drones destroyed 2 Russian Su-34 bombers, damaged 2 and more in Volgograd. I would say it's not Volgograd, it's Volgograd region. I will talk about it a little later. And last night, 3 helicopters and a missile system wiped out after taking down 5 air defense systems in Crimea. In June alone, Russia lost 48 aircrafts. Since the start of Putin's failed blitzkrieg over 420 have been destroyed. Proof Russia can and will be defeated. The process has already begun. Please support her channels and support Ukraine. This is channel Warthog Defense. They are talking about what I just mentioned from Anna from Ukraine, that Russian air base was attacked, and it happened to be in near Volgograd. This is where my family from. It is very personal, and I personally drove by several times by that base when I lived there, so I know personally where it is, what is happening there. And it's shocking, it is scary to see that it can happen to the people I know. But it is Russia who chooses every day attacking Ukraine and continue this war. There was no reason for it other than imperial ambitions of Putin. Putin can stop it any moment, and he chooses not to. Every single day he chooses to attack Ukraine.
Ukrainian drones launched a precision strike overnight on June 27th, targeting 4 Su-34 fighter bombers stationed at the Marinovka airfield in Russia's Volgograd region, located roughly 900 kilometers southeast of Moscow. The operation was confirmed by Ukraine's General Staff and the Ukrainian National News. According to preliminary data, 2 Su-34s were destroyed, while 2 others sustained serious damage.
This is Marinovka Air Base. It's near Volgograd, between Volgograd and Kalach-on-Don. What I want to say about that Marinovka Air Base and destruction of those planes, Su-34 jets. These planes were used to bomb Ukrainian cities. These are the planes who bombing Ukrainian civilians. This is why they were destroyed. Not just because they valid military target, but because of that. And yes, it is confirmed by even Russian Telegram channels, including one of the famous Telegram channel Fighter Bomber. This is basically a quote from Fighter Bomber saying the main point he's trying to make, that Russia should have been predicted and prevented from happening. Russia failed. This is Michael Naki in his channel again, and he is also monitoring very closely Z Patriots and Z bloggers from Russia. None of them disproved that and say that Fighter Bomber lied about this. On the contrary, he told the truth, and they were attacking Fighter Bomber channel for telling the truth and confirming that Ukraine successfully destroyed Russian planes. Yeah, this attack has been confirmed. Ukraine will keep defending themselves. They don't like to be bombed. And this is another thing what Anna was talking about. Ukraine SBU reports that successfully hit Russian-occupied Kirovsk Air Base in Crimea overnight, destroying multiple Russian helicopters, including Mi-8, Mi-26, and Mi-28, as well as Panzer SAM system guarding the airfield. So as you can see, Russian air defense is worthless. It's proven itself worthless in Russia, in Crimea, Ukraine, even in Iran. They can't really defend themselves, let alone whatever they were supposed to protect. These are the videos of the attack on this airbase. You can watch it on the channel of Anton Gerashenko. This is post from Igor Sushko about precision strike of Ukrainian air forces on the Russian fascists in southern front in Ukraine. Let's talk closely about what is happening on the front. In Sumy region, Sumy Oblast, Russian forces are failing to resume their offensive. According to Commander-in-Chief Syrsky from Ukraine, Russia's advance towards Sumy has been stopped. Finally, we got that good news, but Russia still can't really admit that and trying to do something, but it's all basically useless. Even Russian Z-bloggers and analysts have started to admit this. Ukrainian troops also confirmed the stabilization on this front. Though Syrsky acknowledged problems with fortifications in the area, there were reports that they find a whole bunch of those dragon teeth pyramids in one bunch, and they were not properly installed, and they kind of failed, like in the Kharkiv region, to install proper defense lines and so on, how it's supposed to be. But nevertheless, Russians are stopped there. And a few days ago, Putin threatened capture Sumy. Previously, Russian negotiator Medinsky made similar threats during talks in Istanbul, for example. But again, these empty threats failed. Thanks to Ukrainian defenders, Russia's advance in Sumy collapsed. Russian forces have stalled, while Ukrainian soldiers are counterattacking. what Medinsky said in Istanbul and so on. Russia already back then, by attacking, for example, on Sumy region and so on, they were preparing the so-called negotiating position that at least they had to be present in certain regions and claim that, oh, you should have given us all these lands, otherwise now we will go and take even more. For that, they need at least be present in certain areas, but they don't really, Russia really don't need that Sumy region whatsoever, other than for political purposes. And another thing, perhaps, is trying to make Ukraine stretch their forces and hope that they will not be able to defend everything everywhere. And I agree on that with Michael Naki, whose video I'm quoting right now. This is map of the project Deep State, which is a Ukrainian project, but it's very reliable, one of the most reliable on this in the maps and everything. And they also have a Telegram channel. They often criticize the Ukrainian government and so on, so they provide the accurate information, but with a delay, of course, because they don't want to reveal the secrets, what is happening actually this moment on the battlefield. And let's talk about Pokrovsk direction. Russia has concentrated there over 100,000 troops to intensify the offensive, according to Syrsky, Ukrainian chief of the military. While in Sumy region, a Russian army kind of stalled and stopped, the toughest fighting for Ukraine remains in the South Donetsk sector. Russia here is still making progress, and Ukrainian military has not yet been able to stop the advance here. Zaporizhia region. A Ukrainian missile strike hit a shelter housing 346 separate special forces brigade in the Zaporizhia region or Zaporizhia Oblast. The structure collapsed and the personnel inside suffocated due to the lack of oxygen. 11 Russian servicemen, including the chief of staff, were killed. Meanwhile, Russian soldiers don't even expect to be saved or helped if they get wounded or anything like that. And they basically ended their life. And one of them actually filmed it from his telephone. And this man... And then he shot himself into the chin. This is Michael Naki reporting on that. And basically this is one of the examples how Russian army is losing that many people every single day. The guy wasn't killed, so now he will learn to live with the hole in his teeth, basically. So Putin is losing on the front. He isn't winning anything. He's losing soldiers, losing equipment, up to the point that Russia is using donkeys and horses and tractors and civilian vehicles, motorcycles on the battlefield. What is Putin doing? He's whacking civilians. And what all of this horrors was about? This is article from February 24th, 2025, exactly 3 years of Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. You can see the maps, February 22, before the invasion, and the biggest Russian gains in April 2022, March, April, November, and February 2025. Let's look at the fresh article from 2025, June 10th. Institute of Study of War. The two maps that prove Russia isn't winning and Ukraine isn't losing in 2025. Just enough to look at those two maps, and you can clearly see that from January 2nd, 2025 to June 2nd, 2025, roughly the first half of the year. And it's indisputable, I agree. Your eyes don't deceive you. Russia has made virtually no visible progress advancing in Ukraine, despite constant attacks. And you can't find any significant progress even in 2025, over 3 years after full-scale invasion. This is a useful article from BBC 3 days ago. Ukrainian map, striking the war with Russia. And you can see the same kind of progress, absence of progress, despite the horrendous losses, as I just showed you. Every day Russia losing at least 1,000 people, every single day. This is another article from Harvard Kennedy School, Belfer Center. The Russia-Ukraine War Report Card, May 28, 2025. And the same thing, especially look here. This is the biggest gains of Russia after full-scale invasion, March 2022, 58,000 and so on. This is a territory of Ukraine. square miles. And now, in like April, 44 and so on. So now, after over 3 years full-scale invasion, horrendous losses, Russia controls less territory of Ukraine than it did in the beginning of the full-scale invasion, when Ukraine wasn't ready for the attack and trying to negotiate, trying to not to provoke, as the other countries would keep grabbing Ukraine by the hands, as they still doing now, but at the less extent. It didn't achieve anything. Putin is not winning, period. The only bright side lately, it was the exchange of prisoners, but even survivors, Ukrainians returning home like this, after torture, imprisonment, and basically destroyed as a people. But their family is happy to see them, and even a grandson of one man was born while he was in captivity, and he was named after his grandfather Victor. Welcome home, brave defenders. Ukrainians are happy to see you back. Russians, on the other hand, will be highly likely sent back to the front. Putin doesn't want them alive. He doesn't want them back. He doesn't want Russians to tell people what is happening in Ukraine. Now let's talk about what is happening on the international arena. Hungary blocking Ukraine's accession to the European Union, and Slovakia is opposing new sanctions on Russia. As a result, the European Union failed to adopt the 18th sanctions package against Russia. Johnny Ascola is publishing Vatnik Hall of Fame, and continue with 10 more of the loudest Western voices doing everything they can to help Russia win. Trump, on behalf of the United States, endorsed Putin's war crimes during the G7 summit in Canada. Meanwhile, Russian forces continued to murder peaceful Ukrainian civilians. Yeah, they didn't really bother to stop for G7 summit, showing to Europe and to every member of G7 or NATO that Russia doesn't care about anything. They so sure that United States will not do anything to stop Putin, so they continued then, and they continued later, and they continued last night, and so on, as I showed you in this video. I'll show you a few more articles from the current time, a Russian language 24-hour TV channel and digital outlet that concentrates its resources of bringing unbiased information to the Russian language audiences around the globe. They're actually part of Radio Liberty. This article about NATO summit results. And basically, in 25th of June in Hague, NATO leaders decided sharply increase defense spending to 5% of GDP by 2035, which Trump can sign as his own victory and so on. But in general, not every other, but at least like Obama, for example, and so on. Other United States presidents worked on it, and the countries will agree to increase it up to 2%. It wasn't mandatory, but the countries were working on it before. But if to judge what Trump did so far, this is at least could be considered some sort of a victory. Donald Trump at the same time confirmed the ironclad agreement to come on each other's aid in the event of an attack. But then he started to talk about other things, that it may or may not happen, and so on. So we can't rely on his words, and so on. Trump made it clear that Ukraine will not join NATO anytime soon. So thanks to Trump and his position, and position of several other Russian assets, like Orban, for example, Ukraine will not join in NATO. During this summit, they were more trying to keep Trump happy and not bored than actually accomplish anything, in my opinion, but yet something was still accomplished. And the results of the NATO summit were Vladimir Fisyenko and Alexandra Filipenko discussed, saying that personal diplomacy was a success. And Trump didn't left early anyways. NATO has essentially restricted itself under Trump's leadership. Everyone breathed a sign of relief because the summit passed without scandals and conflicts, especially those related to Ukraine. And United States still remains in NATO. But what will happen in the future? That's remained to be seen, but under Trump, there is no chance of Ukraine joining NATO. At the same time, According to Kaja Kallas, Ukraine is now the main line of defense. By helping Ukraine, we help ourselves. The front is not approaching Europe. So European leaders understand, and Canadians and many others, that Russia is the biggest threat, and they will support Ukraine and help Ukraine. And they providing now different ways of support, from money to ammunition and so on. They have various initiatives such as 2 million ammunition for Ukraine, which we already fulfilled by 80%, and so on. They're trying to do more. You're welcome to read the article yourself. A special tribunal on the war against Ukraine has been created in Strasbourg, so they could prosecute people like Putin, and this is the third such tribunal in the history of mankind. Despite the fact that on March 17, 2023, the International Criminal Court in The Hague has already issued arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin, they not consider it, and they don't dealing with a concept, the crime of aggression. When one country attacks another with aggression, the highest political and military leadership is to blame for this, but the International Criminal Court doesn't consider such crimes. And this tribunal was supposed to address this. But unlike the International Criminal Court, also these people can be tried in absentia. At the same time, Putin is unlikely to be a defendant even in absentia until he leaves the post, according to Kravchuk and people who talked about this. Evgenia Kravchuk is a member of Ukrainian permanent delegation to PACE and deputy head of the Servant of the People fraction of Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. This is the third such tribunal in history of mankind, said Kravchuk. The first was Nuremberg, the second was Tokyo for the criminals who dragged Japan into the war, and now the third. I still have a hope to see Putin at Hague as a prisoner. And I hope not only Putin, but his shills and supporters and leaders of other countries who enabled Putin will face the same trials in Hague. This is a protest in Serbia. Vucic now face massive protests today, some of the largest ever. So not only Orban has problems, but Serbian president as well. Meanwhile, Orban is very happy that he blocked Ukraine entrance into the European Union. European Union finally approved 30.6 billion in financial aid for Ukraine for this year. Bravo! Excellent news for Ukraine. At the same time, Macron has announced an unprecedented sanctions package against Russia coordinated with UK, US, Canada and Japan. The package includes a ban on the re-export of refined Russian oil to the third countries and aims to send a strong message. Macron also expressed hope that the agreement will include lowering the price cap on Russian oil. He noted the package aligns with measures currently being developed in the United States Senate under the leadership of Senator Lindsey Graham. I was talking about and writing posts about this, but I'm happy that France is doing it. I'm happy that European Union is doing it, but I wouldn't hope too much that it will happen soon, despite the massive support in the United States Senate of the Graham and Blumenthal idea of new package of bone-crushing sanctions on Russia, because they all thinking about their primaries. And unless Trump will approve their as a candidates and not put in some monkey and say, please vote for him, don't vote for the monkey, don't vote for the Lindsey Graham. So these politicians are scared of Trump and scared of losing their cushy positions and afraid to use the power they have, which is 84 or 83 senators agreed with this package, and it's ready to be implemented, ready to be voted on, but Trump asked them not to rush with this, so they kind of bending the knee. A little bit of fun in the end. These women sitting in this kind of kitchen, and they are thinking how the Ukrainians are gonna live without us. I'll tell you how. Happily, and they will be alive. Leave Ukraine alone. Another funny post from our Canada, basically. Immortal, you say? Well. Putin can't be trusted. Russia can't be trusted. This is a piece agreement between Russia and Chechnya was signed by Yeltsin. 3 years later, Chechnya was destroyed. Russia cannot be trusted. Russia doesn't want to stop the war in Ukraine. Putin doesn't want to stop the war in Ukraine. His economy is collapsing. He can't achieve military victory on the front. This is why he's keep bombing civilians, because for some unknown reason, despite the historical lessons, he is thinking that terror will convince Ukrainians that they should get down on their knees and beg for mercy. Ukrainians know very well that they're not gonna get mercy from Russia. This is why they will not stop fighting and defending themselves. Please help Ukraine to defend themselves. And even if you are Russian, help Ukraine. They are helping you to become free from that murderous regime who already murdered over 1 million of my countrymen. Murdered and so on. Like I explained, it's not just dead. It's all total losses. Only in 3 years, over 3 years of the war in Ukraine. So, thank you for watching. Learn the truth and stay informed. See you later.